What?
Are you going to be doing anything controversial today?
This is the most controversial. I've come to learn that learning Rav Tzadok is controversial.
Yeah.
Why do you get this sort of glee on your face when you talk about
Controversial means it's going to be stimulating. It's going to be a fun discussion.
Not boring. Testing. Thank you for everyone for coming in the rain. Should be Gishmei Bracha. We are in Tzidkas Hatzadik Os Ayin. And as always, when I go through these Rav Tzadok's in advance, I realize you can't read this fast. It's easy to read it fast, but you can't read it fast. There's much here, and in a way, this is kind of classic Rav Tzadok. But on the other hand, there's whole new insights here, which I will show you, B'yirtzeh Hashem. And this part is the classic Rav Tzadok. Ba'oso davar, shebo hachesaron shel adam. If you will be able to identify the fault that you may have, hachesaron shel adam, ba'oso davar ve'al yodeha atzmai hu malosei. That it's exactly this chesaron that you have. Choose your chesaron. Maybe we feel like balei gaiva, maybe we feel like balei taiva, maybe we lose our temper too quickly. In my case, I have multiple choice. So you have, let's say, just pick a chesaron and say, the natural thing to say, and possibly the way we learned it, is, well, get rid of that. Just get rid of that. It comes to Rav Tzadok and he says, not so quick, don't get rid of it, because ba'oso davar shebo hachisaron shel adam, that it's exactly in that particular trait that you are faulty, a person is faulty, ba'oso davar, it's exactly with that trait, let's translate it, va'al yodeha, and through it atzmai, it's exactly there where your growth, hu malosei, not your growth will be. You see, it's often understood as, okay, if you have if you have a health problem, I know for personal experience that if you're diagnosed, let's say, with type 2 diabetes, terrible. What does that mean? But it turns out that if you're careful with it, it's the biggest blessing that there could possibly be, because all of a sudden you're not eating sugar, and all of a sudden you're exercising more, and all of a sudden you're healthier, more health conscious and healthier than you were your whole life because of this chesar. So that's kind of like the easy way to understand that if God blesses us with a problem, with a fault, so don't be too concerned about it, because that in itself could be a smile. I don't think that's what he's saying here. Of course, that's true. But he's saying something much deeper, that if you want to identify on a chart, as a child, school accepting a child, what is this child's greatest milah? What's this child's greatest aptitude? What's this child really going to excel at if we do our chinuch job properly? A lot of ifs there. But if we do our chinuch job properly, and the answer is we should find out what his problem is, because if he, for instance, has a real problem with anger, so we could look at it and say, okay, that's what we're going to work on here, get to blow that anger out of his body, out of his brain. Or we could say, what's the anger coming from? It's coming from a real feeling. I'm just guessing this one, but it's coming out of a real feeling of purpose. It's coming out of a real feeling of It's the word that I'm thinking of standards. This is wrong. Something is wrong. Intolerance to something wrong, and not intolerance like a casual thing you read the news, but a type of intolerance that takes over their whole mind and heart and soul and body, and they get really upset about things, even if they're getting upset about the wrong things, but they have this ability to be like really emotional and really upset about something. So what we know about the child, that's what he is saying in this first sentence, what we know about the child, or it could be the adult, or it could be the person you're marrying, or the person you're marrying off to, whatever it might be, when you see a chesaron, you can say, okay, now I can very easily identify what kind of a tzaddik this person has the potential to be. So it's a difference between, yes, well said. And I feel that on the surface, it's a difference between Musar and Reb Tzadok. So in other words, the idea is if I have some kind of a taiva problem, like I really like to eat meat, like the people in the midbar, like we really want meat. So what we're going to have to do is maybe medicate you. Maybe roll around in the snow, that might help you. Maybe fasting is a good thing for you, not intermittent, but all the time. Like there could be, which is, this is brought in Svarim like Shari Tshuva. This is that serious tshuva. But we're not talking about tshuva here. We're talking about identifying. Tshuva is after you made a bad decision. We're talking about identifying a godless in a person. If we can package this, we can make an app and get rich. In other words, the idea is to be able to identify through a questionnaire somebody's faults, and thereby understand their huge potential for godless. But once again, I want to say clear. Not because you're going to work on it more, like okay, I'm not going to eat sugar anymore. No, because that's a quality. That's a quality. This bad thing that we have that we call bad is bad. It's called the Yetzirah. It's bad. But albeit that it's bad, it's a quality which can lend itself to greatness. I want to just pause for a second. That there's two things that have been bothering me all my life, and I will share with you in case it has not been bothering you. Number one is like, what's up with people like David HaMelech? Like, what's going on there? I mean, David Melech Yisrael, Ha'anim Zmiris Yisrael, the tzaddik of tzaddikim, Mashiach Hashem. Mashiach has to come from him. So, like the whole chapters in Tanakh about how he could not resist the urge of a woman. Shlom Basheva. This is not like, this is right in the Tanakh, and it was an Avera. How do I know it was an Avera? Because it says that he did tshuva. So it was an Avera. Balad B'Kodesh, if you will, Shlomo HaMelech. When you look at his cheshek for everything worldly, opulence and women and like, how does this stem with the greatness of the Gedolei HaTanakh? And let me take it further. David HaMelech's children were no great tchotchkes either. The Malchei Yisrael, they were Avodah Zarah, all kinds of rotzchim, killed people. Menashe, it says that you don't have to go all the way to Menashe. He's just there's more stories about Menashe than others, but Menashe, Haragis Yerushalayim Peh El Peh. He killed Yerushalmim. He killed Yerushalmim Peh El Peh. Chazal Darshan Peh El Peh means he was a specialist in killing Talmidei Chacham, Darshan El Peh, teachers. Haragis Yerushalayim Peh El Peh. Like, where does this come to being a melech? But where does it come to be the grandson of the tzaddik of David HaMelech. How does this all happen? So this is and the answer is one line in Rav Tzaddik. The answer is that let's just read it again. Ba'osa davar shaboy hachesarid shel adam. Let me just spill the beans on this one. It means that if Shlomo HaMelech would not have had a taiva for opulence, he would not have built the Beis Hamikdash the way it was. And if David HaMelech did not have the ambition and the drive and the go-get-itness that he had, he would not have won the wars that he won. Now, this could obviously is this controversial enough for you? Not yet. Okay, not yet. I'm just getting started. But not only obviously this could be used l'ra. All these things, person is unchecked taiva could will put you behind bars or worse. Or take you out of Shemayim, I'll take you out of heaven also. But we're talking about the desire itself. The desire itself, where we might tend to say to myself, like, gosh, why am I even thinking this? There must be something wrong with me. Let's medicate, let's go to a rabbi, let's do something. But the desire itself, I believe that the reason this teaching, which I think is an obvious teaching, that this teaching has not become more popular is because it's a dangerous teaching. Not so much controversial, but dangerous. In other words, the dangerous part of it is that we will end up encouraging our children to, let's see how bad you could get. Meaning by unchecked ra. That's no good. But it doesn't take away from the reality of it that there's strength there. Yeah.
Use the word channeling.
Channeling is the right word, but you're
channeling that.
Right, as opposed to absolutely correct, as opposed to obliterating it. So I often make the point that like on our school, on every advertisement for every school, it always says Chanoch Lanaro Pidarko, which is the last thing they do. Not all. I don't even know why they write that. Why do they write that pasuk? They write a different pasuk. Chanoch Lanaro Pidarko means exactly this: channeling. Taking a child. I don't know that we have the budget for this type of individual channeling in every child in every community, but ideally, v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam according to the Chumash, the father is the right one to educate their kid because they're not only understanding the chasar, but they probably created it to begin with. So they're going to understand it in a very very deep way. More so that a teacher is able to give time to understand.
It doesn't sound like a good Kiddush. Isn't that what Rashi says about the whole Levadocha?
So yes, it's a davar pasha.
Yeah.
It's not a davar pasha levaisa. But I'll tell you where it just gives me a new understanding of not just David HaMelech, let's say, but Abaye, where the Gemara talks about. We'll talk about that. Talks about his big view. To understand that not only about them, like that we have some medrash or something, but it's mefarish b'kra. It's right in the Tanakh because this was all part of understanding the godless of people of the Malchei Yisrael of David HaMelech, and everybody knows this that when it's an astonishing thing anyway, but when the Anshe Knesset Agdola, which is like a Sanhedrin, Anshe Knesset Agdola refers to a period. 150 years worth of Sanhedrins. But with the Anshe Knesset Agdola saw there's too much Avodah Zarah, too much Harayas, so they were mispalel that it should go away. Everybody knows. They were mispalel levatel yitzray shel Avodah Zarah, mispalel levatel yitzray shel Harayas. So that's always amazed me all by itself. Like you can be mispalel and all of a sudden the whole generation has a different Yitzhahara, it's for our rice. It's an amazing feat of siyata d'shmaya. But what they actually did, I think the right way to through tefillah and through siyata d'shmaya, is they said to Hashem, let's lower the temperature here on the Jewish people because they're very Yisrael, Baishonim, Kaisonim. We're very emotionally charged, So let's lower the temperature. And then they realized, the words of the Gemara, I'm not saying they realized that they made a mistake. Rosh Eino El B'Skayim. This is not going to work. If you lower the temperature, I remember when he was older, Shlomo Karlbach, who used to talk to him a lot. So I remember him telling me, I'm older, the soup is not as hot as it used to be. It's just not, you could, I don't want to give a lecture on Shlomo Karlbach, but it was an interesting insight. In other words, that part of that,
The soup in him or the soup
I mean, if superficially, it means that I don't have the energy that I used to have. But, that kind of energy is coming from a lot of different places, and it could lead you to good places or to bad places or to misunderstood places. And but when the soup is not as hot as it used to be, so the temperature is lower. So Achik Nesses Hagdola just lowered the temperature, realized that Eino Eila Miskayim. It can't. This is not the middle was Eino Eila Miskayim. Not only will there not be any children born, and even plants stopped reproducing, and animals stopped reproducing. But Chutz Mizeh, how are we supposed to be an Or L'Amid that way?
It's also when Nevuah went away, right?
Absolutely, and Nevuah went away B'chlal because the Avodah Zarah they didn't bring back. It's deeper than that. It's not just Nevuah and Avodah Zarah. The whole ability, the whole innate ability to worship went away. We're not Ovdim in the same way that we used to be. It's completely unnatural for us. It would be completely unnatural for us to, maybe on Yom Kippur at the height, to get down on the floor and bow down to Hashem. It would be awkward if we would do that on a regular basis. I'm talking about out of a sense of sincerity. It would be awkward because we don't worship in the same way that we used to worship. Why don't we worship? Because together with, when you raise the temperature on worship, you get a certain cheshek for Avodah Zarah all of a sudden. Whoa. So what happens is, you lower the temperature on Avodah Zarah, so now you lower the temperature to Beis HaMikdash. We don't have a Beis HaMikdash. Some of it goes together. So maybe the temperature is rising. So this is the balance here to strike is touchy, but this is what he's talking about. I want to show you more. In Shamruzal, Chazal say in Sanhedrin Daf Ayin, Vayitperu ale te'ena. What was I talking about? Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Chava realized that they had done a chet, and then they took fig leaves, as we all know the story. They took ale te'ena, vayitberu ale te'ena, and they covered their nakedness with the ale te'ena, with the fig leaves. What does vayitberu mean in this case, by the way? A little Hebrew? No, tough. They sewed it up? They actually sewed garments? I mean, no, in other words, not like the movies, There was an avodah here. There was a malacha of tefira. Vayitperu. It's an interesting lashon of the term. Vayitperu. That's how you understand. They sewed it together somehow. They wove it together. So vayitperu ale teina. Bedavar, says the Gemara. Bedavar shekilkulu by niskanu. Why did they pick the ale teina fig leaves to cover themselves with? Well, they're big. Why they pick that? No. As a Gemara, they picked it because the Gemara says because the fruit that they ate, according to this opinion, the fruit that they ate was teina. So bedavar sheniskanu by niskanu. Al derech zeh. Well, let's get to al derech zeh in a minute. But this is a reverse engineering of the Gemara, by the way. Because the Gemara doesn't know what fruit they ate. They don't know what the Eitz Hadas was made of. There's all kinds of machlokes. Everything is on that list except for the apple. The forbidden apple is the only thing that's not on the list there. But it could have been a lot of things that were there. And one of them is a ta'ena. So the Gemara reverse engineers this and says that, well, from the fact that vayitbru ale ta'ena, that they took the ta'ena leaves, the fig leaves, and they used it to sew themselves clothes with when they realized that they're too naked. So that, go backwards now, and now we know that, the Eitz Hadas must have been from figs, or giving fruit of figs. So the davar should. So now this says Reb Tzadok. This begs the question: stay away from the chet. The last thing you'd want to use and indulge in is going to be fig leaves. You just got messed up with figs. Figs should be treif, especially for them. No, they went. They saw the figs that they just ate. They just ate. Adam, Chava, everybody knows the story. They have leaves, and those leaves is going to be our tikkun.
Why is that also davar?
The same branch.
Also davar, it says apply. Also davar should be the fig itself.
So I'm glad you asked me that. Because I looked around, I was very curious about this word, vayitberu, and believer of Hirsch writes this lashon pri. So they actually took the fruit itself and they made them into ale ta'ena. I think Hirsch says it unclear to me. I've got to consult the original German, then it'll be totally unclear to me. But then I looked also in the Sefer Ksav Kabbalah. This word just piqued my interest. Vayitbru, which just caught my eye. Vayitbru. That they sewed. I guess it was hard for me to imagine. The whole story is hard for me to imagine. But like a new piece in the story is that they all of a sudden came up with a needle and thread and they started making begadim. That's what tefillah means, which is what the Mefarshim actually asked. And then they say no. Vayitbru is they fruited it. I don't know how to. Stuck it together, yeah, which would answer the question, which is why. Egel paraduma, we're going to get there in a very, very deep way, but don't lose the plot here, because it's not just like some kind of a hekish, that they absolutely needed the ta'ena to be able to bring out their greatness. It's not like you do tshuva. You see, the Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva that it's not called tshuva until you return to l'osa makom and l'osa isha and v'loy chata. You don't do a chet. And so the big question, everybody go, hey, vey, like you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to go back to the French Riviera and look up the same woman. Like that's the last thing that you're allowed to do. Why does the Rambam even say that? So the yeshivish answer is that well, it doesn't mean that you should do that, but if that happens, you'll be able to withstand it. It's not exactly what the Rambam says. What the Rambam says, that is the tshuva gemura, the finishing, actually, the makib patish on the tshuva is going to be when the tikkun comes. We spoke about this with Yosef having to marry the daughter of Potiphar. It had to be. And that's why it's not good enough to say, well, go back to the bad or somehow or another the bad. That somehow is the tikkun. How could it be the tikkun? Because it wasn't a koach. It wasn't a chesaron that Adam and Chava had the curiosity and the chutzpah, if you will, to eat from the Eitz Hadas. I mean, life would not be like it is now, for better or for worse, if they would not have eaten from the Eitz HaDaas. In fact, there wouldn't have been a whole chumash. That would have been the end of the story. what's the rest of the story? Because why do I say that? Because the whole story, the whole chumash, is all about tikkun achet. The whole Har Sinai was to do tikkun achet, and the Egel was going back to the chet, and back and forth, and back and forth. And Mashiach is the tikkun of the chet. So the whole chumash came about through this, but they obviously did something wrong. Obviously, they did a terrible chet. They brought Misa Elam, but maybe not to criticize the curiosity that they had or the chutzpah that they had. I'm going to show you in a minute that the different Reb Tzadok, he calls, he says that in Tanakh and in Chazal a lot, they call the Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they call them Eitanim. So Eitanim. So what's an Eitan? What is it? Strong ones, like stark v'eisen. Eitanim. He says here, Reish Mem Ches, what I want to get to for a second, in a minute. He says here, Ha'avos nikroim Eisanim, Rosh Hashanah Yudal. Shamati, he said he heard from his rabbi, that's the Ishbitzer Rabbi, Perushai, that the taich of Eisanim, Akshanim. Gewalt. Akshanim. Perush. What does that mean? There are Akshanim, the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Think about it. Stubborn. Perush. Shahayalahem tokef hacheshek boer ke'esh lo yishkat v'yanuach ad sheyagia lemiluyah. They would never give up even if the whole world was against them. Akshanim, I'm going to go against my family and stop worshiping Avodah Zarah and teach. Akshanim, I'm going to walk into a fiery furnace. Akshanim, I'm going to put myself down on the eitzim and allow myself to be shechted. Akshanim, I'm going to go ahead and do an akedah on my son. All of these things, and Yaakov, the whole last parsha is all about akshanis.
It says, I did a covenant with his son.
With the akshan, so a sonim. You're right on, Aaron, because what he's saying here, in Reishim Ches, in context and out of context, is it was their chesaron. A sanim is a chesaron. And that, and the Gemara Rosh Hashanah Yud Aleph, it's also Yeshayahu, he talks about a sanim. But those a sanim, that a sonistic, if you will, was the chesaron which made them great. Am Kshei Oref. So all those stories in the Midbar about how stubborn we are, Hashem said validated it. Yeah, listen, are they rough? Yeah, they're rough. I mean, Harry, you want to explain to us cool and sul? There's this idea of, right? I don't know. Ari taught me these words: cool and sul.
Sul,
Am I not pronouncing it right?
In Israeli Yeshivish parlance, Sul is a Tzadok v'Raloi, which means a very Yeshivish bacher with such a good belief that
he's a tzul.
He's a tzul. And the cool is the cool guys who I also like learning, but they're close.
But we're not. But I just want to point out, lav ba'avrayonim skina. Yeah, we're not talking about it off the derech.
That's not what
it's not one of the options. All right, how many people you think are like you? If you'll read the Sefer HaTanya carefully, he likes Beinonim more than he likes Tzaddik V'Ralos. Because the Beinoni is Sefer Shel Beinonim. Not just because, there's a lot of those, let's write a book for them. That's not what he is. Beinoni does no Averis, says the Balatani. We're not talking about somebody who does Averis in his parlance. What we're talking about is somebody who, what's the right word, appreciates Averis, is battling with Averis. So, While I'm talking out of book here for a second, I just want to tell you the other thing besides David HaMelech that always bothered me, and this is a subtle point. I might have mentioned this before, but probably not. I usually keep this to myself. But and that is that I never got the idea of Yetzer Hara, like, in other words, I was brought up in yeshivas, so like there's these two voices inside of me, or two inclinations, as they're always translated, inside of me. I don't know who came up with that idea. It sounds like something in the New Testament. But there's two inclinations, evil inclination, a good inclination, and God mercilessly planted them inside of me. And I have now this kind of like schizophrenic pull in two directions. I just don't like it. Like, why can't it be that, look, I mean, Chazal say that. I'm not going to argue Chazal here, but I'm like, nafshi, like, why can't I be a human being? And a human being sometimes wants to do good and sometimes wants to do bad. But the human part of it is that I want to do. I could take it. I could take it from the good to the bad, and we all know that by the Eitz Hadas, Adam and Chava, they ingested this Ra and this Yetzer Hara, so this is where the battle began. Good. I appreciate that. What it's hard for me personally to relate to is like there's this war going on inside of me. It just feels like a very unpeaceful, and it would be like a good goal, I would think, to unify yourself and be at peace. So, in truth, what I'm saying is exactly what Chazal say. Chazal say, Tov zu Yetzer HaTov, Tov ma'od zu Yetzer Hara. Isn't that the Lashon of Chazal? Famous Chazal. That Tov is what you call the goody-goody. That's the the nice guy, Tul. And but Tov Ma'od is like, when I have this sort of cheshek to do all kinds of things, which we'll call Yetzer Hara. Tov Ma'od, that's a very good thing. That's a very, very, very good thing. Meaning, it's not a good thing if you fall into a pit, but it could be a good thing if you become like a David HaMelech, or if you become, if you reach in general the level of Malchus, which means, Kabbalistically speaking, Malchus means that it's completely integrated into me. So it seems like Chazal say, Agadol mechaveroi. I want to be Medayik. Maybe you were never Medayik before. Agadol mechaveroi. Yitzroi Gadol mimeno. What's the missing word here? Yitzroi hara Gadol mimeno. Doesn't say that. It's good deal. Agadol mechaveroi. Yitzroi Gadol mimeno. Okay, we're here to reteach. It doesn't say that. If you are a gadol, you have a very big yetzer. Nekuda. You have a very big, a katan. I don't mean a katan, a kid, but a person who's not a big person, a great person, has a very small yetzer. So let's lose the term for a moment, if you don't mind, evil inclination and good inclination. We're talking about a yetzer. What is a yetzer? That yitzroi gadol imenu, hagadol mechaver. You should know, why is he? This is what Chazal are saying. That's all they're saying. Why is this person such a big gadol? The answer is because yitzroi gadol. The bigger you are, the bigger the yetzer. And in that Chazal in particular, I actually looked it up to see if I'm losing context. It doesn't talk about, if you're a big gadol, you're going to really be a ganef and a rotzeach. Like you've got big challenge. No. It means you have a big yetzer. That's all it means. It means you have a big yetzer. Who says the yetzer is a bad thing? So I'm going to skip with you for a minute because before we get to the next part, to this Reish Mem Ches that I was referring to. Listen to, if you have it open, Reish Mem Ches. Let me just read to you a couple lines. Ikar ha'adam, if we wanted to define a human being, what type of human being is this? Ikar ha'adam, hu ha'cheshek shebelev. What is the defining factor of a human? Ha'cheshek shebelev, ha'cheshek. Having a hard time with words today. What's cheshek mean? Okay. Shaboy, because it's this cheshek, it's by the way, it's a very interesting word. Is it related to the word choshesh, chashinon, chosh, meaning quiet, chish means to be quiet, chish means fast, chish lanu yesha, chish lanu yesha. What, is all word related? Cheshin? Huh? Can't hear. Yeah. Yes. So hacheshek is an interesting word. In the Radak it says the difference between taiva and cheshek is taiva is a physical desire, and cheshek is emotional longing. This is the Radak. So Ikar ha'adam, I mean, obviously that's not his words, but that's what he says. Ikar ha'adam hu ha'cheshek shebelev sheboy, because it is that cheshek, now that we know what the word means, yisroinai ala malachim, that's what makes us above angels. An angel has no cheshek to do anything. Has no cheshek to grow, to get promoted, nothing. A malach is a busy bee. Your job is to help people give birth. Your job is to give people parnasa. Your job is to kill people in Mitzrayim. Different malachim, different jobs. Just do your job. And
Those 3 examples that only does.
I know, the dafka, but we know that it was a malach that malach habris. They're omdim. Omdim. They're not. What is it? An omed, right, is the opposite of cheshek. Like, you know, you get a job, a jobnik. Get a job. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm happy, no stress. Okay, that's not called, I'm not knocking it, I mean, I'm just saying that's not called Yitzroi Gadol. Yitzroi Gadol is I'm going to, change the world. Yitzroi Gadol, go to outer space. Yitzroi Gadol, that's Yitzroi Gadol. Ikar ha'adam hu ha'cheshek shebelev, shebo hu yisroinai al ha'malachim, v'hu, this cheshek that we're talking about that puts you above malachim, hu hanikra yetzer. That's what yetzer means. That's what the word yetzer means. Yetzer toiv, yetzer ra, kasher hu magbir cheshkoi l'toiv, where's a toiv? V'im lav, ra, meaning it's not that I have this fight inside of me, a war going on, like this kind of two voices pulling me in different ways. No, that's not what it means. I have a yetzer. If you don't have a yetzer, maybe you can medicate a person to get rid of their yetzer. But if you don't have a yetzer, if you do have a yetzer, you can use it l'toiv, and you can use it l'ra. I'm a person with a lot of cheshek. So if I'm a person with a lot of cheshek, and you get older, the soup is not as hot as it used to be. It's the truth. But when you have a lot of cheshek, you can use it l'toiv, and you can use it l'ra. That's what the words yetzer hatov and yetzer hara means. Chidush nifla. Not there's ra within me. The Amru Chazal, and this is what Chazal mean in Sukkah Nun Beis, kol hagadol yitzray gadol. Different lashon. Kol hagadol yitzray gadol. You want to understand a gadol is a person. That gadol is a person with a lot of cheshek. You know what it means when a kid becomes bar mitzvah? All of a sudden they have cheshek for things, and parents go to therapists. What are you supposed to do now? It was so nice when when Mendele just followed the rules, but all of a sudden there's cheshek, and that cheshek is frightening to us naturally. Ki gadlus echad al chaveroi. What makes one man greater than the other? I kid you not. This is what he says. Ki gadlus echad al chaveroi hurak kvi goydel hacheshek shaloi latoiv. Dahainu koyach hayetzer. It's what makes one person greater. In other words, it's not your memory, or not even how many mitzvahs you do and how many averos you don't do. It's how much cheshek you have, and the greatness will come out when that cheshek is channeled latov.
And there's nothing you can do if you don't have that. So you can't go out and get more. It's a kid who isn't, who's absorbing, a kid who's doesn't.
No cheshek.
He's just a good kid. Just do it.
Yeah, get rid of him.
Right.
He's off the derech.
We should try and give him a little bit of cheshek, because he just wants to sit down.
Look, it's surgery. I know what you're doing here, but I just. But then again, people should not be educating kids if they don't know what they're doing. It's great, we don't take doctors that don't know what they're doing, presumably.
Are we going to give everyone a parenting exam before they can have children?
Parenting is not a bad idea at all. And I'll tell you why it's not
fail the consequences.
No, I'll tell you why it's not a bad idea, because I think parents would naturally know what to do, but we've taken too many parenting camp classes so that are like how to knock the good out of the kid. So I always repeat this, even though I hate it, but I always repeat this as an example. But somebody told me when my kids were little that every kid is created different, and chinuch is to get them to all be the same. It's one of the worst comments I've ever heard in my life. So much so it sticks in my mind every day. My gosh! But that is the easier way.
Cookie cutter. Here's the cookie cutter sheet.
Yeah, like, what is it? It's like a Mao Zedong or something. Like it's like just make every yeah.
So he gives a definition. He says gadol yetzer, and then in the next line he says
The hainu koyach hayetzer, koyach.
right, the koch of the yetzer is the gadol.
Oh, but here's the key line. Here's the key thing. Ki yetzer toy v'yetzer ra echad. And there I am validated. Yetzer toy v'yetzer ra echad. You know what I was thinking about this morning? Every time I try this exercise, every time I say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, so that's Yisodi, right? That's what Jews say. They say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What's the message? The proclamation of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hashem is Midas HaRachamim, and Elokim is Midas HaDin. So they probably the most Pashup shot that we have to think is no matter what happens, it seems good, it seems bad, Hashem Echad. It's all one. It's all one thing. It's all Hashem. Trust Hashem. Trust Hashem. Hashem Echad. That's to me Pashup shot. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Yamin small, put it together. So every time I say Shema, while you're waiting, I try to think of another example of just a 10-second exercise, another example of how good and bad are really one. How many? It's not such a hard exercise to do because, a lot of the things that you look back on your life, on your own life, so you thought they were bad and they actually ended up good. The Piasetzner writes that I'm more grateful for the bad things that happened to me in life than the good things. The things went smoothly. So this morning's kavanah. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, whether it's coming out as a Yetzer Hara or Yetzer Atov, Hashem Echad, it's all one koach within me, or within the Bnei Yisrael for that matter, Klal Yisrael, to it's all Echad, and it's all there it's everything is from Hashem.
Protests are good.
Good.
We're into it.
Chas v'shalom, there would not be any protests on the right or on the left. That would mean we were dead. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it out of hand? Yes. That's not the point. But Yetzer Hara, nothing I'm saying entitles anybody to do a chet. or to be violent or anything like that on any side. But what I am saying is that if something bothers you, kol hakavod. Something bothers you. It always comes back to, indulge me for repeating, but it always comes back to like Rav Moshe Feinstein's famous vart that he said that, when he was a kid, like people would kill themselves for an aliyah, or who's davening for the Yamad. It don't have to be when he was a kid, when I was a kid too. It was just crazy how people got so crazy about who davened for the Yamad, Rabbi Vashol, why are you letting Hitler daven for the Yamad? That's it was craziness. And then it changed. All of a sudden today, you're right here, Baruch Hashem, everybody's a gentleman. No, you say Baruch Hu, you say Baruch Hu, you say Baruch Hu. Turning around like, being a gentleman, everybody's a gentleman. Why don't you want to say Baruch Hu? If you're a novel, you should want to say Baruch Hu, Chap the Baruch Hu. So Rav Moshe said this has changed over the years. We became gentlemen, American culture, however you want to understand it. And they used to be violent, and now everybody's polite. He says, and I'm not sure which is worse. I'm not sure which is worse. Because as unpleasant as it was, and maybe even pushed people out of the shuls for that matter, were these fights, and they're arguing about good things. They were bothered by important things. They were bothered by like what are you doing? Buying the wrong herring. This was a tradition. This was, you don't do this. So, like if you're bothered by something, that's not Yetzer Hara, that's not Yetzer Tov, that's Yetzer. That's the point of this whole thing here. But let me just finish these. Pardon me? It's very interesting, by the way. When he quotes, he says, Kol HaGadol Yitzrei Gadol. He doesn't say Mimenu, but Mimenu means what?
Myself, maybe that my Yitzhak is greater than me, and my God was my Yitzhak is greater than that.
Or if I'm a Gadol, I think this is what I'm saying is the Pashutim shot now. If I'm a Gadol, my Yetzer Hara is going to be bigger than the guy who's not a Gadol. That's the simple shot. But it all works. It all works, and I believe my diuk is a diuk amiti. And that is that it doesn't say Yitzrei Hara Gadol. This is a person with hot soup. This is a person with a lot of drive, a lot of ambition, and a sensitive neshama that's bothered by things. Look, get it in check and don't hurt people. But it's a sensitive neshama. So if you have such a child, as opposed to so count your blessings. Now you have a real parenting job of He says, let me just finish this line in Rav Tzadok here. Ki yetzer tov v'yetzer ra echad, zelu mazeh b'shnei chalalei halev, which is like we could look at it from a brain biology point of view, which I know very little about, but I do know that there is the mangala, there is the survivalist part of the brain, and then there's the front cortex, which is a different part of the brain, and it's all engineered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and one is not bad. The last thing you want to do is amputate one of them. Ki yetzer leiv ha'adam ra minu urav, says the Chumash, because yetzer leiv ha'adam ra minu urav. This is a survival instinct. This is what makes us grow. This is what makes us not AI. This one here is the one that makes us want to be great people and fix the world.
We're saying Ra, but Ra.
Because Ra is misdefined. Ra is misdefined. It's that which can come out as Ra if you're not careful. That's what it means. And I want to commission the Soilim, maybe even who's online, come up a better word than evil inclination. It feels to me just evil inclination. You say to a kid in 4th grade, that's your evil inclination. Analyze it, and understand what the cheshek is here, and figure out, somehow, be a chacham, and figure out how do you use that cheshek l'tov. That's all. It's not easy, but that's what the Torah wants us to do. Isn't that what the Torah wants us to do?
That's where the Dalet goes.
That's where the Dalet goes. Chesed and Gvura Echad. Yeah, I spoke about that.
Yeah.
Huh, that's what you're talking
about. What should say at the end of days is Yetzer very small.
So the Gemara says that the Gedolim, the Tzadikim, nidme lahem kahar gadol. But it doesn't mean necessarily a big challenge.
The Shalom had also the same.
They saw it as a little tiny thing, because they were small people. Whereas big people have big yitzers. Groisa cheshek. I think, like, the tzaddikim looked at it and they, well, we could have been even bigger. Like, it doesn't say there either such yetzer hara.
I don't know, I'm not sure. But the concept is...
It's like a bit of enough. Hey? Yeah, it says ra. Yetzer hara is a real concept.
Isn't this what Rashi said about Isn't this the same idea? I think that's the use is man getting away.
Yes. Yes. And every Kohen, do you understand this? That in order to be the one who's qualified, Levi, Shimon and Levi, you said, in order to want to qualify to lead Klal Yisrael, you have to be a Levi, or at least have that characteristic. Moshe, Aaron, Levim. Shimon and Levi, violent people.
Didn't work out well for Shimon.
Didn't work out well for Shimon. There's a reason for that also. But Levi was a very emotional, principled person, and the same Levi who Yaakov, Shimon v'Levi Achim, Yaakov Avinu was not impressed with the way that it came out, mostly because you're not giving us a good reputation amongst the neighbors over here. Like, don't be so. But at the same time, this was created a Moshe and an Aaron. And this is every Kohen who can do avoda, a Kohen or a Levi. Can you imagine a Levi, like in the Beis HaMikdash, singing Bli Cheshek? Not even thinkable. Like the emotional part of the emotional part of the song is the song. That's the whole niggin, the whole Shiur is Shiurei Halev. That's what the word means. Shiur means Shiurei Halev.
That's why they're angry with the Kohen? Because they're passionate?
Yeah, passionate. Thank you, passionate. So, Hakohen, they're from Pinchas, just like Pinchas. Pinchas was also an angry man. Angry man.
So the yetzer hara just means animal instinct, it just means base instinct. It's just that, it's just the Kohen again, it's just the raw material.
Yeah, hot soup. Hot soup. Hot soup.
The Gemara in Sukkot says that Hashem will shut the yetzer hara. The yetzer hara.
Which doesn't bother me with Reb Tzadok, by the way.
I'm saying that's the same Gemara with
But before what does that even mean? It means to say that the game's over.
not going to try it anymore.
The game's over. Meaning, like, Los and Lavai, maybe even when Mashiach comes, the Chaim talks like this, like that the challenge is going to be over and we're going to know, now what do I do now?
That's external. Not that you're removing it from every person necessarily. The Gemara is saying.
Yeah.
Maybe from someone. It's not a steer what we're talking about inside the person.
It could be, but I think that taking away the yetzer hara is because the tikkun was made. And now you could become like malachim, which is not as exciting as we think it is. There's a lot to say here. I just sort of, I'm just remembering that sitting with, at a Hanukkah Masiva, I think it was, I was sitting with in Yeshiva, and Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal, Rav Scheinberg was sitting at the table, and he didn't talk much at all. Not Shabbos, not the weekdays, not Hanukkah, just didn't talk. He was a show, unless he was giving a shiur, he didn't talk much. But somebody said they're going to Bnei Brak. They're going to Bnei Brak. I'm talking now 48 years ago. I'm going to Bnei Brak. It was a big deal. And somebody said you should go into Panovich. Some of this conversation. You should go into Panovich and just look at Rav Chatzkel Levenstein, Tzaddik Livracha. Just look at him. And by the way, when he was old, so he sat in a room. He wasn't so involved with the Bachram, but there was like a window, and you could just go and look at him. So just even, I mean, what he did for people and the amount of families that he helped, and the amount, but when he was 100 years old or whatever he was. But just go look at it. Go look at him and see what a malach looks like. And Rav Scheidberg says, a malach? Why are you putting him down? He's a basar v'dam. Look what a basar v'dam can become. Okay, changed my thinking. And in fact, I went to look at Levenstein. Okay, to see what a basar v'dam can become, seeing a malach. Okay, watch the movies. You know, it's not a... Okay, thank you.